Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. So one of the things that usually breaks my immersion in a movie is bad tactics. Now it usually won't ruin a movie for me, but it's something I like to discuss with like-minded individuals. I'm sure a lot of you fit in this category. Star Wars, like most sci-fi properties, is full of questionable tactical decisions. So we decided to start a series that analyzes the tactics in major Star Wars battles. Today, we'll be looking at the Battle of Yavin 4. Lucas was a brilliant creative mind, but he'd never directed a war film or served in the military. He tried to join the Air Force, but he was rejected for having too many speeding tickets, which is actually kind of a good thing, because otherwise, maybe we wouldn't have Star Wars. But because of his lack of experience for the Battle of Yavin, he drew inspiration from a movie made in 1958 called Dam Busters. It was based on a real-life World War II mission where British bombers attacked several dams in the Ruhr Valley, an important strategic economic stronghold for Nazi Germany. Like the Battle of Yavin, it was a daring raid carried out by a small task force against a huge, well-defended structure. Lucas borrowed many things from this movie, including the pilot banter.
Okay, leader, you can go right in. I'll fly across the dam as you make your run and try and draw the flag off you.
Go, leader. We're starting
for the target shaft now.
We're in position. I'm going to cut across the axis and try and draw their fire.
He got the idea for the trench run from this movie as well. While a lot of these things did make sense in the Dam Busters movie, it didn't necessarily make sense in the situation he presented in Star Wars. The first tactical error was made by Leia after making their escape from the Death Star. She correctly assumed that the Empire let them go on purpose and was tracking them.
They let us go. It's the only explanation for the ease of our escape.
Easy? You call that easy?
They're tracking us.
But then she just lets Han jump them straight to Yavin 4. Why would she endure all that torture and even let her home planet get destroyed to hide the location of the rebel base, and then just be so nonchalant about it? I mean, she could have easily asked Han Solo to stop in a random system and check the ship for any trackers using a scanner. Instead, their actions forced the mission against the Death Star to happen way before the rebels were actually ready. They only managed to round up 30 snub fighters and a banged up Corellian freighter. No capital ships, no A-wings or B-wings, there just wasn't enough time. Without that proper support, so many good pilots and Porkins lost their lives. But luckily, the Empire made the next mistake. If Vader choked Admiral Kendall Oswald for screwing up the sneak attack on Hoth, he should have killed whoever plotted the hyperspace route to Yavin 4. Well, I guess he can't kill Tarkin, but still, the Death Star arrives in system with the giant gas planet of Yavin blocking them from the rebel base. The thing about rebels is you have to get the jump on them. They're much lighter armed and smaller in numbers, which means they're quite mobile and usually run from a fight unless they have the upper hand or they're on an important mission. That's why the Empire has to build things like interdictors. They also built probe droids, which could have easily been sent before the Death Star to figure out exactly which moon the rebels were on. With that information, they could have exited hyperspace right in front of the moon and fired their super laser immediately. The rebels wouldn't even know it hit them. But instead, they have more than enough time to launch an attack on the Death Star before it gets into position to attack Yavin 4. First, the X-Wings move in to target the point defense weapons and turbo laser batteries on the Death Star. The hope is they can start weakening the area's defenses so the slower Y-Wings can eventually make their attack run on the Death Star exhaust port, which isn't a bad strategy. But oddly, the Y-Wings enter the trench several kilometers before the exhaust pipe. While in the trench, the starfighters have limited mobility, which completely negates their only advantage. On top of that, there are still defensive weapons in the trench, and the Y-Wings are essentially fish in the barrel, extremely easy targets. When the TIE fighters come in, they don't stand a chance. But then again, where are the X-Wings? Why aren't they covering the Y-Wings during the attack run? Han Solo is the only person who really seems to get it, and he even saves Luke with that very tactic. And after Gold Squadron fails, the rebels go back into the trench 2 more times. Why? It's not even a really great angle to attack from. The exhaust pipe is facing upwards. Luke's own shot seems kind of impossible. His proton torpedo makes a 90-degree turn on the dime. That's probably pretty hard for non-Force users. Instead, the optimal attack angle, which would give them the best shot at the target while exposing them to the least amount of enemy fire, would have been a perpendicular dive. Now, in the movie Dam Busters, the bombers make a similar low-altitude attack run on their final target. But that's what actually happens in real life. They're using special bombs which are designed to skip on the water and over the torpedo nets the Nazis had deployed around their dam. Low-altitude flight is naturally exciting. The ground speeds pass you and the pilot has little room for error. But just because it's exciting doesn't necessarily mean it works in every scenario. I mean, What happened here was, I think George Lucas had a Michael Bay moment. On the Imperial side, stupidity or perhaps arrogance takes over once again. The Death Star doesn't have great anti-starfighter defenses. Part of that reason is because the Empire thinks that snub fighters just wouldn't be able to damage a space station that large. And because of that arrogance, they delay sending TIE fighters out until the last minute. And judging by what we see on screen, there are only 8 of them. Now, we don't know exactly how many TIE fighters the Death Star has, but it's been said that each of the numerous staging areas located around the ship have at least 20 TIE fighters ready to go. I'm guessing the number is in the thousands, which makes me wonder why would they even allow these snub fighters to get close to the Death Star? In World War II aircraft carrier battles, the goal was intercepting enemy aircraft before they reached your ship. Why didn't the Empire just scramble a couple of 100 TIE fighters to stop the Rebel fighters from even getting close? And even if they somehow managed to get through that screen of fighters, why aren't there any large ships protecting the Death Star? The Empire has 25,000 Star Destroyers, countless more cruisers, frigates, and corvettes. These ships, especially the smaller ones, would be perfect at defending against snub fighters. Let's look at Earth-based carriers again. They have an entire fleet built around them for protection. Leaving your military's most powerful and expensive weapon unprotected just makes no sense. It's almost as if the Empire allowed the rebels to win. But why? So they can build a second one? I went into this video thinking I should probably take it easy because I really do love Star Wars, but as I got more into the analysis, it started pissing me off how terrible some of these decisions were made. And when I started watching Dan Busters, I realized so many scenes were actually just ripped off. But then I remembered that anger leads to hate, and that's the last thing I want to feel when I'm watching a Star Wars movie. At the end of the day, I don't watch Star Wars for the real tactics or even watertight plot. I watch Star Wars because I love the universe and characters that live in it. It's a universe that is so deep that it allows me to make these deeply analytical videos about minute things inside of it. But I guess that's the most important part of Star Wars. It's not the individual scenes or even films. It's about the bigger picture, an entire galaxy for our imagination to wander in. Wow. Did we just end an episode on a meaningful, non-sarcastic, and positive note? Well, I'm not sure, but what I am sure about is you're not going to want to miss Project Celestial Power's crazy one-day Kyber crystal sale. Their scientists just finished researching one of the cleanest and strongest energy sources you've ever seen. Its power will literally blow you away, especially if you're against the Empire. Now for a limited time, you can get your hands on a surplus Kyber crystal at cost. Why are they so cheap, you ask? Well, let's just say it was as easy as stealing candy from a small child. But instead of candy, we stole Kyber crystals, and we got rid of the small child.
Oh, this is so bad.
Kyber crystals are the most precious gems in the entire galaxy. Not only are they hard to find, they're alive. So put a pair in some earrings or get a big fat one for an engagement ring because Kyber crystals are a girl's best friend. PCP Kyber crystals are Pacific conflict zones in separate systems and illegal to import. Please consult your local dealer for exact origins of your stone. Ben, are you sure we should be doing this? It's kind of messed up, man. Like, wow, that sounds terrific. I think I'm gonna get my girl one right now. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Next episode, we're going to be heading out to the frozen tundras of Hoth, and we'll be analyzing that battle. Don't forget to hit the subscribe and notification button so you don't miss out on the rest of this series. And a special thanks to all you Patreon supporters out there. If you guys were making a trench run in a Y-Wing, I'd be manning that rear turret for you. Just me, because Ben is an Imperial. The best you could do would be to miss or something. Well, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.